Haiyan Wu stood in the great council hall and felt his heart beat fast like drums in his chest. The giant room was made of crystal that sparkled with light. From 1,000 different stars, each wall showed images of the 12 races that ruled the galaxy, and their flags hung from the high ceiling like colorful banners in the wind. He had been Earth ambassador for 10 years now and had seen many meetings in this place, but today felt different. Today the air seemed thick and heavy like before. A storm. His hands shook, not because he was scared, but because anger burned inside him like fire. Behind him sat Jin'ei, his trusted helper. She was young but smart and could speak the languages of all 12 races. Her face was pale as she listened to the alien voices that filled the room. She knew what was coming, just like Haiyan Wu did. They both knew this day would change everything. Vexed-Eye Chancellor stood at the center of the room. Her body looked like living diamond, and when she spoke, her voice rang like bells. The sound was beautiful, but the words she said were ugly. She held a golden tablet in her crystal hands and began to read from it. For 300 years, humans had worked with the Galactic Council. They had been soldiers and doctors and teachers and builders. They had fought wars for alien worlds and saved millions of lives. They had shared their knowledge and their strength with anyone who asked for help, but now the Chancellor said humans were too dangerous. She said they were too quick to fight and too slow to think. She said human emotions made them unpredictable, like wild animals that could not be trusted. The other council members nodded their heads in agreement. The more done representative moved his long tentacles in patterns that meant yes in his language. He had forgotten that human soldiers had died to save his home world just 5 years ago. The Kef energy being glowed brighter when he agreed with the Chancellor. He did not remember that human scientists had helped his people learn to travel between stars. Even the Zulvan delegate clicked his insect mandibles in approval. Haiyan Wu felt sick when he saw this. The Zulvan had been humanity's best friends in space. Human engineers had built their first spaceships, and human doctors had cured their children. When plague struck their worlds one by one, each race voted yes to Resolution 4471. This new law would trap humans in their current space territory, like prisoners in a cage. It would put alien watchers on human military ships to make sure they did not act too aggressive. It would force human colonies to ask permission before they could defend themselves. But the worst part came at the end. The Chancellor smiled with her crystal face and suggested that humans needed their minds changed. She said human brains were broken and needed to be fixed by alien science. She spoke about behavior modification, like humans were broken machines that needed repair. Yun Wu closed his eyes and thought about his daughter So Young. She was 20 years old and worked as a teacher on New Soul Colony. She helped alien children learn to read and write in human language. She had never hurt anyone in her life, but according to this council she was dangerous because she was human. He thought about Captain Teho, who was fighting pirates in the Outer Rim right now to protect more dun colonies. He thought about Dr. Minho, who worked day and night to cure diseases that killed alien children. He thought about Engineer Su Jin, who built clean energy plants on dead worlds to bring them back to life. All of these good people were being called dangerous monsters by the very aliens they had spent their lives helping. Haiyan Wu felt something break inside his chest like glass shattering. It was his faith in the Galactic Council. It was his belief that different species could work together in peace. The voting was finished. The resolution had passed. All 12 races had agreed that humans needed to be controlled like dangerous animals. The council members began to talk among themselves in their various languages. They seemed happy with their decision. They acted like they had solved a great problem. Hyun Woo stood up slowly. His chair made a soft sound as he pushed it back. The noise was small, but somehow everyone in the great hall heard it. Conversations stopped, and thousands of alien eyes turned to look at him. Some were curious. Some were annoyed that he had interrupted their celebration. Jin'ei looked up at him with worry in her dark eyes. She reached out to touch his arm, but he was already walking toward the speaking platform. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Each step sounded like thunder in the quiet. room he reached the platform and turned on his translator device for the last time as a council member. The small machine hummed to life and would carry his words to every species in their own language. He looked out at the sea of alien faces, some beautiful, some strange, some that had once been friendly but now seemed cold as ice. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the great hall. He did not shout or scream. He did not wave his arms or make threats. He simply stood straight and spoke with the dignity that humans had always shown even when they were being treated badly. Told them that humanity formally withdrew from the Galactic Council effective immediately. He said that all human ships would return to human space. He said that all human workers would come home. He said that humanity would no longer serve as guardians and protectors for species that saw them as monsters. Silence that followed was deeper than the space between stars. The aliens stared at him like they could not believe what they had heard. The Chancellor Crystal face showed confusion. She had expected humans to accept their punishment like obedient children. She had never imagined they would simply leave. Some council members began to speak at once, creating a noise like angry birds. Their translators could not keep up with all the different languages being spoken at the same time. Questions and protests filled the air, but Haiyan Wu was already walking away. Jin'ei gathered their papers and files and followed him toward the exit. Her hands shook as she tried to carry everything, but she kept up with his steady pace. They walked past the alien delegates who were now arguing loudly among themselves. The beautiful crystal hall that had seemed so grand when they entered now felt like a prison they were escaping. As they reached the door, Haiyan Wu stopped and looked back one last time. He saw the chaos they were leaving behind. He saw aliens who had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had thrown away their best friends and strongest protectors because of fear and jealousy. Turned and walked through the door with Jin'ei beside him. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued to argue and shout, but their voices grew fainter with each step. Soon there would be only silence where human voices had once offered help and hope. Day humans withdrew from the Galactic Council had begun, and it would be the day the universe learned what it truly meant to be alone. Captain Tejo stood on the bridge of his warship Thunder, Strike, and watched the enemy fleet approach through the darkness of space. Red warning lights flashed all around him, and the sound of battle alarms filled the air. His crew of 200 brave humans had been fighting for 6 days straight without rest. The Grimtar pirates had come to destroy another peaceful colony. This time it was a Mordun world called Sweetwater, where families lived in crystal cities beneath purple skies. The pirates wanted to steal everything valuable and kill everyone who tried to stop them. They were cruel beings who enjoyed causing pain, and Fear Tejo had brought his fleet here as soon as the distress call came through space. That was what humans did when aliens needed help. They dropped everything and rushed to fight the bad guys, even when it meant risking their own lives. His ships had already destroyed 12 pirate vessels, but more kept coming. Lieutenant Eunji sat at the communications station with her headset on. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing buttons as she coordinated the battle. She was only 25 years old, but had already fought in 7 different wars to protect alien worlds. She was proud to serve with Captain Tejo, who was known throughout the galaxy as a hero. The Mordun people were already loading their escape ships and flying away from their home planet. They trusted that the human fleet would buy them enough time to reach safety. That was how it always worked. Humans fought while aliens ran to safety. Then when the battle was over, the aliens would thank them and humans would go find the next fight. But today something was different. Eunji suddenly stopped typing and her face went white as snow. She turned to look at Captain Tejo with eyes full of shock. She had just received a message from Earth Command and could not believe what she was reading. She handed him the datapad with shaking hands. The message was short, but it hit him like a punch to the stomach. All human military forces were ordered to immediately stop fighting and return to human space. No exceptions, no delays, no questions asked. Every human ship everywhere in the galaxy had to come home right now. Eho. Read the message 3 times to make sure he understood it correctly. Around him, his bridge crew continued fighting the battle, but he felt like time had stopped. The order was signed by Admiral Hyan-Su himself, the highest military commander in human space. This was not a mistake or a test. This was real. On his tactical display, he could see 3 more Grimtar fleets approaching Sweetwater Planet. Each fleet had enough ships to destroy the Mordun colony completely. The aliens he was protecting had no weapons of their own. They were peaceful people who made beautiful art and grew wonderful food. They had never hurt anyone in their entire history. His weapons officer, Young-ho, called out that they were running low on missiles. His shields were down to 30% power and 2 of his engines were damaged. The enemy had more ships and more firepower, but human crews were better trained and fought harder. That was why they usually won these battles. But now he was supposed to just leave, turn around and fly home while innocent people died behind him. Let the pirates burn the crystal cities and enslave the Mordun children, abandon everything his crew had fought for during the past 6 days of hell. He looked at Eunji, who was waiting for his orders. Her face showed the same confusion and pain that he felt inside. She had lost friends in this battle, good humans who died protecting aliens who would never know their names. Now their sacrifice would mean nothing if the pirates won. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were happening on thousands of human ships. Dr. Minho was working in his laboratory on the planet Bright Hope, trying to cure the energy plague that was killing millions of Kef people. He had been studying the disease for 15 years and was finally close to finding the answer when the recall order arrived on his computer screen. He stared at it for a long time. The plague was spreading faster each day. Soon it would kill every Kef in the galaxy unless someone stopped it. He was the only scientist who understood the disease well enough to create a cure, but Earth wanted him to come home immediately. Engineer Su Jin was building a massive orbital platform around the star called Golden Fire. Platform would provide clean energy to 12 different worlds, including 3 that were slowly dying because their old power systems were failing. She had spent 2 years on this project, and it was almost finished. Her construction crews were mostly human, but she also worked with alien engineers who had become her friends. They shared meals together and told stories about their families back home, but now she had to tell them she was leaving. The platform would never be completed without human technology and knowledge. Diplomat Wu Bin was in the middle of peace talks between 2 species who had been at war for 50 years. The Krath and the Velmar had been killing each other over mining rights in the Spiral Arm sector. Millions had died in their stupid war, but finally they were ready to sign a peace treaty. He had spent 6 months getting them to agree on the terms. Both sides trusted him because humans were known for being fair and honest. When the recall order came through, he was reading the final treaty draft that would end the bloodshed forever. Instead, he stood up from the negotiating table and walked out without saying a word. Alien delegates stared after him in shock. They could not understand why he would leave. When peace was so close, the Krath ambassador called after him, asking what was wrong, but Wu Bin kept walking. His footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as he left the peace talks behind. All across the galaxy, humans began packing their belongings. The aliens watched in confusion and growing fear as their protectors and helpers prepared to leave. They had grown used to having humans around to solve problems and fight dangers. Most had forgotten how to take care of themselves. The Vextai had expected humans to accept the new rules and stay in the council with less power. They never imagined that humans would choose to leave completely. Their perfect crystal minds could not understand why anyone would choose pride over safety, independence, over belonging. Emergency council sessions were called as panic spread through alien space. The same beings who had voted to restrict human activities now begged them to stay. They promised to reconsider the resolution. They offered better terms and more freedom, but it was too late. Captain Tejo made his decision. He would not abandon the Mordun people while they were still in danger. His ship and crew would finish this battle and make sure the civilians escaped safely. But after that, they would follow orders and return to human space. The Thunderstrike turned toward the largest pirate ship and fired everything they had. The battle raged for 3 more hours until the last Grimtar vessel exploded in a ball of fire, the Mordun colony. Ships reached safety just as the human fleet prepared to leave. As his ship jumped into hyperspace, Taiho did something that would be remembered forever. He switched off all human communication frequencies for the first time in 300 years. The galaxy fell silent. No more human voices offering help. No more human ships rushing to the rescue. No more human hands extended in friendship. Recall had begun, and with it the universe started to change. 6 months had passed since the day humans left the Galactic Council, and the universe was starting to break apart like a machine without. Oil Ambassador Ji-hoon sat in his new office on Haven Station, looking at reports that made his stomach feel sick. Haven was a neutral world where humans now had their embassy, but it felt lonely compared to the Grand Council halls outside. His window, he could see alien ships arriving every day carrying refugees and desperate messages. The beings who had once voted against humanity now came begging for help, but the humans stayed quiet and watched from far away. The first disaster happened on Sweetwater Planet, where Captain Taiho had fought the pirates. The Mordun people had returned to rebuild their crystal cities, but the Grimtar came back with bigger fleets. This time there were no human ships to protect them. The peaceful aliens had no weapons and no soldiers. The pirates took everything and made slaves of the survivors. Ji-hoon read the report with sadness in his heart. He remembered visiting Sweetwater as a young diplomat. The Mordun made the most beautiful music in the galaxy, and their children laughed like silver bells. Now their cities were black ruins, and their people were gone. Dr. Minho had been so close to curing the energy plague that killed the Kef people. Before the recall order, he had been working 18 hours every day in his laboratory, testing new medicines and treatments. The Kef had infinite knowledge, but they thought in straight lines like computers. They could not make the creative jumps that human minds could make. Without Dr. Minho, the plague spread like fire through dry grass. Every day thousands of Kef died as their energy bodies flickered and went out. The ancient race that had existed since the stars were young was disappearing. Because they could not think like humans could, engineer Su Jin had left her orbital platform half finished around Golden Fire Star without human technology. The alien workers could not complete the project. 12 worlds that needed clean energy began to run out of power. Their machines stopped working and their cities went dark. People froze in the cold and died from diseases that modern medicine could have cured, but the real problem was deeper than anyone had imagined. For 300 years, humans had been the fixers of galactic civilization. When impossible problems appeared, humans found ways to solve them when different species could not agree. Humans helped them find compromise. When technology failed, humans figured out how to repair it. Humans thought differently than other species. Vextai used perfect logic, but logic could not solve every problem. The Kef had ancient wisdom, but wisdom was not enough for new challenges. The Mordun felt deep emotions, but emotions alone could not build starships. The Zulvan worked hard, but hard work without creativity just made the same mistakes over and over. Rai Jin worked as a cultural expert on Haven Station, studying how the galaxy was falling apart. She had been a teacher before the withdrawal and understood how different minds worked. Her reports showed the truth that no alien wanted to admit. 17 wars had started in regions that had been peaceful for decades without human mediators to help solve disagreements. The alien species began fighting over resources and territory. Trade routes that humans had maintained for centuries broke down when the complex problems needed creative solutions that only human minds could provide. The galactic internet was failing because it needed constant maintenance by people who understood both advanced technology and practical problem solving. Human technicians had kept the vast network running smoothly, but alien engineers could only follow instruction manuals. When something new went wrong, they did not know how to fix it. Food Shortages spread across civilized space because human agricultural specialists had helped alien farmers grow crops on difficult worlds. Without human knowledge of soil chemistry and plant breeding, many colonies began to starve. Their traditional methods could not feed the huge populations that modern farming had made possible. Even art and music were suffering. Human creativity had inspired alien cultures for generations. Now their songs sounded empty and their paintings looked flat. They had learned to copy human techniques, but could not create the spark of original ideas that made art come alive. The Galactic Council met every week now instead of every month. The great crystal chamber that had once echoed with confident voices now filled with desperate arguments. The 12 races pointed fingers at each other and made wild plans that never worked. Their perfect bureaucracy was designed for peaceful times. When humans handled all the real problems, Chancellor Sora had replaced the disgraced Vextai leadership. She was younger and tried to be more flexible, but even she could not fix the growing chaos. The council members spent their time writing new laws and making new committees. But laws could not stop pirates, and committees could not cure diseases. The council had been like a beautiful garden with humans as the gardeners who pulled weeds and planted new flowers. Now the garden was dying because no one knew how to take care of it. The aliens had the tools and the knowledge, but they did not have the special touch that made things groggy. Hoon received visitors every day. Alien ambassadors came to his office with tears in their eyes, begging for human help. They offered money and territory and precious resources, but the humans always gave the same answer. Humanity appreciated their concern, but was no longer available for galactic service. Some aliens tried to sneak into human space, hoping to hire human mercenaries or kidnap human scientists, but human border patrols turned them away or arrested them, depending on their intentions. The humans had learned to protect themselves first, instead of always helping others. In human space, life continued peacefully. Human colonies expanded into new regions that had been forbidden by council law. Human scientists made breakthroughs without having to share their discoveries with ungrateful aliens. Human artists created beautiful works without having to worry about alien approval. Admiral Tejo commanded the growing human fleet from his flagship New Thunder. His ships were faster and stronger than anything the council species had because human engineers could innovate without restrictions. The ships stayed in human territory, protecting human worlds and human interests. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. When you treat your best friends like enemies, they might decide to stop being your friends. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of problems that needed human solutions, but the humans were no longer listening to alien distress calls. The silence continued, and with each passing day it grew louder. 1 year after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, the universe looked like a broken toy that no one knew how to fix. Representative Dal Su sat in the back corner of the council chamber, watching alien leaders beg and cry for help that would never come. He was one of the few humans still allowed to attend council meetings, but only as an observer, who could not vote or speak. The great crystal hall that had once sparkled with pride and confidence now felt cold and empty. Half the seats were vacant because some species were too busy fighting wars or dying from plagues to send representatives. The beautiful flags that hung from the ceiling were torn and faded like old clothes that had been worn too long. The proud Vextai, who had led the campaign against humanity, were now facing extinction. Their crystal cities were cracking apart because of earthquakes that shook their home world. The ground trembled every day and buildings fell down, killing thousands of crystal people. For decades, human geologists had been studying Vextai geology and had built special machines to keep the planet stable. The humans understood how to read the warning signs and knew where to place the stabilizing devices. But when the humans left, they took their knowledge with them and turned off their machines. Vextai tried to fix the problem themselves using their perfect logic and advanced mathematics. But earthquakes did not follow logical rules. They were chaotic and unpredictable. Like many things in nature that needed human intuition to understand, The crystal people were very smart, but they could not think outside their rigid patterns. Chancellor Sora herself had come to Dalsu 3 times begging for human geologists to return. Her crystal face showed cracks from stress, and her voice had lost its musical quality. She offered to give humans complete control over Vexti mining operations if they would just save her dying world. Sue listened politely, but gave the same answer every time. Humanity appreciated her offer, but was no longer in the business of saving alien civilizations. If the Vexti wanted human help, they would need to approach Earth directly through proper diplomatic channels and negotiate fair terms. The Kef were losing their war against the energy plague that Dr. Minho had been so close to curing. Their pure logical minds could process vast amounts of information, but they could not make the creative leaps necessary to find a cure. The disease continued spreading, and their ancient race was disappearing like smoke in the wind. Every day thousands more Kef died as their energy bodies flickered and went out forever. Some of the oldest beings in the galaxy possessed knowledge from the dawn of civilization, but all their wisdom could not save them from a simple biological weapon that humans could have defeated easily. The Kef Council of Elders had sent desperate messages to human space, offering to share their most secret knowledge in exchange for Dr. Minho services. They promised to reveal the location of ancient artifacts and the secrets of energy manipulation that they had guarded for millions of years. But Dr. Minho was now working on human projects in human laboratories. His research had advanced far beyond anything the Council had ever imagined, free from the restrictions of galactic law. He was making discoveries that would benefit humanity for centuries to come. He had no interest in saving the people who had called him dangerous. The Grimtar pirates had grown bold and savage in humanity absence. These cruel raiders had been kept in check by human military forces who fought with a combination of tactical skill and fierce determination that other species could not match. Now they rampaged through civilized space, conquering worlds and enslaving entire populations. Admiral Tejo received daily reports about pirate attacks, but his ship stayed firmly within human borders. His fleet had grown larger and more powerful than ever before, with new weapons and shields that made his vessels nearly invincible. But they only protected human colonies and human trade routes. The pirates had captured Sweetwater Planet again, and this time they kept it as a base for launching attacks on other worlds. The beautiful Mordun people were forced to work in slave camps, mining precious metals that the pirates sold to buy more weapons. Their crystal cities were demolished and replaced with ugly metal fortresses. 3 more peaceful species had been conquered by the Grimtar in the past 6 months. The gentle folk of Silver Moon were extinct now after refusing to fight back against the invaders. The flower people of Paradise Valley were scattered across the galaxy as refugees begging for food and shelter. The Council military forces tried to fight the pirates, but they were weak and poorly coordinated without human leadership. Their ships were slower and their tactics were predictable. The alien commanders followed rulebooks instead of adapting to changing situations. They lost battle after battle while the pirates grew stronger in human space. Life had never been better, free from the obligation to constantly rescue ungrateful aliens. Humanity had turned inward and focused on their own development. Their scientists made breakthrough discoveries. Their engineers built amazing machines, and their artists created works of beauty that inspired the soul. Human colonies expanded rapidly into unexplored regions of space that had been forbidden by Council law. They found new worlds, rich with resources, and established thriving communities that prospered without alien interference. The population of human space doubled as people returned from alien territories and refugees fled the chaos outside. Captain Heian Su now commanded a massive space station called New Earth that served as the capital of human civilization. It was 10 times larger than the old Council headquarters and filled with gardens and schools and laboratories where humans could pursue their dreams without restrictions. The technology gap between humans and aliens was growing wider every day. Human engineers had designed faster ships, better weapons, and more efficient machines. Their medical advances had eliminated diseases that still plagued alien worlds. Their computer systems were decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. Trade continued between humans and individual alien species, but only on human terms. The aliens had to pay premium prices for human goods and services, while humans could buy alien products cheaply because of the economic chaos outside their borders. Most importantly, humans had learned to value themselves and their unique abilities. For 3 centuries. They had given their best efforts to species that took their help for granted. Now they understood that their creativity and determination and courage were precious gifts that should not be wasted on those who did not appreciate them. Delsu watched the council members argue and plead and make empty promises to each other. They had created the perfect bureaucratic system for peaceful times, but bureaucracy could not stop wars or cure diseases or inspire hope in desperate hearts. The galaxy was learning the hardest lesson of all. Some things once lost can never be recovered. The trust and friendship that had taken centuries to build had been destroyed in a single day by fear and jealousy and pride. Now the universe was paying the price for throwing away its greatest treasure. The age of human servitude was over, and the age of human independence had begun. 2 years after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, the universe was dying a slow and painful death. Chancellor So-Ra stood in the empty docking bay of Haven Station, holding a small travel bag that contained all her remaining possessions. The great Vextai civilization that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was now just a memory written in broken crystal. She had come to beg the humans one last time, not as the leader of a mighty empire, but as a survivor of a dying race. Her planet was gone, swallowed by earthquakes that tore it apart like paper. The few remaining Vextai lived in refugee camps scattered across hostile worlds where they were treated like unwanted guests. Meeting room where she waited was simple and plain. Compared to the Grand Council chambers where humanity had been humiliated 2 years ago, there were no crystal walls or floating lights, just basic furniture and a table with some water glasses. The humans had grown beyond the need for impressive decorations. Across from her sat the human leadership that now controlled the fate of the galaxy. Ambassador Haiyan Wu had gray hair and lines on his face from carrying the burden of his species' isolation, but his eyes still burned with the dignity that had made him walk away from the council. Admiral Teho wore the uniform of the independent human fleet. His ships could probably conquer half the galaxy if he chose to, but he kept them safely in human space, protecting his own people first. His face showed the weariness of a soldier who had seen too much suffering. Dwar Min-ho looked older and wiser than when he had left his plague research to return home. His discoveries in human laboratories had advanced medical science by centuries, but he had no interest in sharing his knowledge with the species that had called him. Dangerous engineer Su Jin had built wonders in human space that made the old orbital platform look like a child toy. Her fusion reactors powered entire star systems, and her shipyards produced vessels that seemed like magic to alien observers. A dozen other humans sat around the table, each one holding keys to technologies and knowledge that could save the dying galaxy. They listened politely as Sora made her desperate proposal, but their faces showed no emotion. The offer was everything the aliens had once refused to give. Humanity would be granted complete autonomy within a new council structure with veto power over any decision that affected them. Human military forces would have unlimited operational freedom to go wherever they wanted and do whatever they thought necessary. Human scientists and engineers would have unrestricted access to any project in the galaxy, with full authority to make changes as they saw fit. Human colonies could expand into any territory they desired without asking permission from alien governments. In exchange, humanity would return to their role as galactic guardians and help save the species that were dying from wars and plagues and their own inability to solve complex problems. The terms were generous beyond anything the humans had ever been offered before. It was complete surrender by the alien races who had once voted to restrict human activities. They were offering to make humans the unofficial rulers of galactic civilization. Yunwu listened to every word without interrupting. When Sora finished speaking, he sat quietly for a long moment, looking at the desperate alien who had once been his enemy. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable, but the humans were used to silence now. Finally, he spoke with the same quiet dignity he had shown when walking away from the council 2 years ago. His words were polite but firm, like a teacher explaining something to a slow student. Humanity appreciated the generous offer, he said, but they had moved beyond the need for council membership or galactic approval. They had discovered that they were quite capable of thriving without alien oversight or interference. The age of human servitude was over and would never return. However, he continued, humanity was not without compassion. They understood that the galaxy was suffering, and that many innocent beings were dying through no fault of their own. Humans had always been protectors of the weak and defenders of justice. Therefore, humanity would be willing to provide assistance to any species that approached them directly through proper diplomatic channels. Each request would be evaluated on its own merits with appropriate compensation and mutual respect required. The days of humans rushing to help anyone who called for aid were finished. The days of humans sharing their knowledge freely with ungrateful recipients were over. The days of humans sacrificing their own interests for alien benefit would never come again. But humans would still help those who deserved help and treated them with respect. The galaxy could be saved, but only on human terms, under human leadership, with human interests given priority. Sora realized the terrible truth as she listened to Haiyan Wu's measured words. The aliens had not just lost their protectors, they had created their replacement. The species that had once served the galaxy as humble guardians had become the master race that would decide who lived and who died. She thought about the proud HFY civilization that had ruled the stars for millions of years, brought low by their own arrogance and stupidity. She thought about the ancient Kef dying from a plague that human medicine could cure easily. She thought about the peaceful species enslaved by pirates that human fleets could defeat in days. All this suffering could end with a single word from the humans sitting across the table, but that word would only come when the aliens proved they deserved salvation. The universe had spent 2 years learning to survive without human help. Now it would learn to earn human friendship. Meeting ended with polite handshakes and empty promises to consider future cooperation. Sora left Haven Station, knowing she would probably never see her species survive the coming winter. The HFY had been the architects of their own destruction, and now they would face the consequences. As her ship departed from Haven Station, she looked back at the growing human empire that sparkled with prosperity and strength. New cities were being built on every human world, while alien civilizations crumbled into dust. Human technology advanced every day while alien science stagnated. Galaxy would survive, but barely, and only those species smart enough to humble themselves. Before humanity would see the next century, the universe had learned the most painful lesson possible, that some mistakes can never be undone. The day humans withdrew from the Galactic Council was indeed the day the universe changed forever. But the change was not the loss of galactic civilization, it was the birth of human supremacy. The servants had become the masters, and the masters had become beggars from their position of chosen isolation. Humanity was now more powerful than they had ever been as the galaxy eager helpers. They had learned that respect must be earned, not given, and that strength comes from knowing when to walk away. The humans had withdrawn from galactic affairs, but in doing so, they had found their true place among the stars, as the undisputed rulers of a universe that finally understood the value of human friendship. Reckoning was complete, and the age of humanity had begun.